So welcome to In the News. And so today's video is going to be a part one of this. So it's going to be quite a bit longer than I thought to do this, but I realized after I finished, doing this is that the reason why it took so much longer is because I'm used to writing thought pieces. Well, this is more so a researched report. So it's slightly different. So it took some time, as you can see, to gather all the data and or the information and whatnot to report this, but obviously is worth it. And then I'll have all of the links and whatnot at the end of this presentation and also in the description. So yeah, but like I said, it's going to be part one because BUSD has problems with two financial agencies, which is the DFS and then also the Security Exchange Commission, or the SEC. So today we're going to be talking about the New York DFS, um, and then in a few days we're going to be doing the SEC. And miraculously, before we even start, my webcam just started working. I don't know why. And I don't know, but luckily I didn't throw it away or anything like that. Anyway, so according to the New York DFS, they released an order to cease minting new Paxos-issued BUSD, which is the Ethereum-based version of BUSD, due to multiple different issues regarding Paxos's oversight finance's usage of Paxos-issued BUSD. As a response, Paxos said they would cease minting the token on February 21st. Despite this, the same report said that the company would continue to manage BUSD dollar reserves. And specifically, the report states that all BUSD tokens issued by Paxos Trust have and always will be backed one-to-one with US dollar denominated reserves. Finally, the report mentions that BUSD will remain fully supported by Paxos and redeemable to onboarded customers through at least February of 2024. So to cover these highlighted issues here, or parts here, so the news, when you look at the regular, crypto news, is all doom and gloom, obviously a whole bunch of sensational stuff, and they're implying that BUSD is over, as in like it's not going to exist tomorrow. So that's why it's always important to do this type of research, and that's why hopefully you guys appreciate this type of stuff. So according to the actual Paxos company themselves, is that despite the issue, and I'm going to mention this word cease, despite the order by the DFS to cease it, the company has said in multiple different ways that they're going to continue BUSD essentially. And they said, for example, here that the company would continue to manage BUSD dollar reserves. And then it says that BUSD issued by Paxos have and always will be backed one-to-one. And then it also says that they're going to continue the service even though they have the order from the DFS. They're going to continue it to at least February of next year. So it could be even extended past that. So the reason why that's interesting is that when you compare it to the New York DFS, their terminology is cease. While sometimes Paxos uses cease as well, you see them using the word halt, and then there's certain articles that say stop. So halt, stop, cease. Obviously, stop and halt being more so closer than cease. So that's what I'm kind of seeing here, and you'll see at the end why that's important. One of the conclusion pieces I have here, I guess. And so this is my part of the SEC that we're going to do later. And so what does this information tell us from these articles? So what's important to understand is that there are multiple different versions of BUSD issued by Paxos and Binance respectively. The BUSD breakdown by blockchain goes as follows. Paxos issued BUSD is on Ethereum, while Binance issued BUSD is predominantly on Binance and Polygon, but it's also available on Avalanche blockchain and also Tron and Optimism as basically within the last 90 days. So the Binance issued BUSD are wrap tokens, and that's a category of cryptocurrency on their respective blockchains. And this means that Binance obtains Paxos issued BUSD, lots of tokens into smart contracts and wallets, and then mints new tokens at a maximum ratio of 1-to-1 to avoid fractional reserves, which would unpeg the value of wrap tokens compared to their original parent tokens. So in reference to the New York DFS, since Paxos is regulated by the DFS, there are certain generally publicly undisclosed criteria that Paxos had agreed to in regards to its usage and issuance of BUSD. And apparently that also includes how Binance uses the token, or their oversight of Binance's activities with the token. And that's what it implies, but we're going to discuss later that doesn't really make all too much sense. But According to Cointelegraph, the DFS is concerned that Binance issued BUSD might not be properly backed or have issues being one-to-one backed. And in my opinion, this has to do with the news back in January of this year, where CZ, the head of Binance, he admitted that there were times that Binance BUSD wasn't completely 100% backed. And the article states that the gap between the backed reserves of Binance BUSD and the BUSD circulating on the exchange amounted to sums of, so the difference between the two amounted to sums of up to $1 billion between the years of 2020 and 2021, and this being the case on at least 3 separate occasions, according to the article. This means that Binance minted and sold new Binance BUSD before purchasing Paxos-BUSD to serve as collateral, resulting in temporary under-collateralization. And yeah, so we're going to talk about these highlighted points before going to the analysis section. So let me just make sure this is the first one here. Yeah, okay, so we're good. So this is kind of a conundrum where I don't think the DFS really understands what they're saying, because you're finding with these DFS, with the SEC, with all these regulatory bodies, just not in the United States but also globally, that legislation is always going to be lagging compared to the industry, and you see it evident here. So their concern is that Binance issued BUSD might not be properly backed or have had issues being backed one-to-one. And so this is kind of a contradiction where you can only really have one of these problems, where at the issue of it being backed one-to-one, and that means, the Binance that's on the BUSD that's on Binance, on Polygon, Avalanche, that being one-to-one with Paxos-based BUSD that Binance has in their smart contracts. That's what they're comparing to. So Paxos BUSD and then what Binance has minted themselves. So if your concern is that if it's one-to-one, you would have to know it's properly backed by Paxos-based BUSD. Because Binance themselves don't have to hold, literally billions of dollars of U.S. treasuries and whatnot that Paxos does to create their stable coin. All they have to do is own Paxos, because Paxos already did that job. To be properly backed, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So it's kind of confusing on what that means. And does that mean just for the exchange, or does it also mean for on all dexes and whatnot? To what extent does that carry? And this is all that the article I mentioned here. So and yeah, before we get to the analysis here, so according to the same report, on and being under collateralized. Essentially, Binance is being accused of minting Binance BUSD before purchasing Paxos BUSD to serve as collateral. So, as you guys, hopefully picked up within the article, the order for wrap tokens is collateral, it being locked, and then you minting the new tokens. So, Paxos, that's USD or USD cash equivalents. You're locking that up, or you're providing, proof that you own it, and then you're issuing Paxos-based BUSD on Ethereum. Then Binance has to collect or has to purchase the Paxos BUSD as collateral. They lock it, and then they mint the Binance BUSD on the other side. And so that's the correct order. What this is stating is that Binance, like I said, is on their exchange at least, that they issued more BUSD than what they had in Paxos-based BUSD. So while this is seemed to be demonized and whatnot, I tried my best to understand what the actual business rationale for this could be. And so my opinion, and I try to look at this because I thought it was recently due to, and some people have suggested that maybe it was because Binance recently, if you guys don't know, they for their exchange, they are changing all of the stable coins from USDT, USDC, and automatically to BUSD. So that adds to a lot more volume, volume for the token than naturally there would be. I thought that would be the case, but that was in 2022. So this suggests that this was during the NFT bull run, or the crypto bull run of a few years ago. And so what's more likely the case is that maybe people were trying to cash in, or trying to, especially into a stable coin, which is natural. and perhaps Binance just didn't have enough at the time. So perhaps Binance just minted some to supply, customer demand, and then used that crypto that they got for exchange for the BUSD, and then bought Paxos afterwards. So the analogy for this in the real world is that yes, this is wrong, but I think this is wrong in a term where if you compare it to a restaurant, it's bad. It's wrong where the restaurant might have a dirty fork or a dirty plate or a hair in the food, and compared to a FTX situation where the restaurant has a whole bunch of roaches, mice everywhere, rotten food, that type of situation. So that's kind of how I feel about this after reading all of this information. But to the analysis section here. So the following points are important to analyze the Paxos-BUSD versus the New York DFS situation. So um, and I made 3 points up here. So Paxos and Binance BUSD are two separate tokens with arguably either completely or somewhat separate use cases, and because of that, the authority that the DFS has is greatly under scrutiny. So it's really unclear why the New York DFS has a say over Binance and what it does with its own Binance BUSD tokens. And assuming that Paxos made the BUSD deal with the DFS on their own and not with Binance, which isn't hard to imagine considering Binance is always under U.S. investigation or always getting sued or something like that. I don't think the New York DFS is an authority to take action on Binance's decisions. So, and then yeah, let me just let me see if I want to. Yeah, okay. Let me continue this, and then I'll recoup or recap. And so, the separately issued tokens are at a separate contract address, or sorry, separate contract addresses on different blockchains, meaning that if they are objectively independent, that means that they are objectively independent digital entities. So, if Paxos BUSD was launched in 2019, and that also implies that the DFS did all their security searches and criteria matching in 2019. But Binance BUSD on Optimism was launched in February 2023. Does that mean that the New York DFS also has concern if that token is backed one-to-one as well? Or is it just Binance blockchain BUSD, or is it just Polygon blockchain BUSD? And then that also leads to question two, where you look at on DeFi BUSD also is on a few other different blockchains. So what if I own Binance, so Binance blockchain BUSD, I create a wrap token and then make my own stablecoin after that? It would still function in the same exact way, but would the New York DFS have concern if my stablecoin is backed one-to-one, or is it just Binance? And if it's just Binance, which blockchain? So many different questions. None of these were answered, or none of these I can at least find the answers for. And yeah, which is, and this point as well, Binance is a whole separate company, and it's like in the same way how the Ripple versus the SEC situation, where commentators are saying, even though they swear up and down that Ripple isn't a security, and I haven't looked at Ripple in years, so I don't know. But the point being is that even if the SEC says that it's a security, that only matters within the United States. There's obviously there's many other countries, many other continents where Ripple can be used. So ultimately, not really a who cares situation, but it's like you only have a limited supply, limited authority. So, and that's the SEC. So when you compare that to the New York DFS, statewide, financial service agency, I guess, what authority do they have over a Binance? It's kind of curious. Moving on. Point 203. Users purchase on Binance BUSD primarily for utility, which is blockchain specific projects, which could be a wash to earn. It can be for transaction speeds, and it can also be for gas fees. So this suggests that users understand that Binance issued BUSD is cash settled and not redeemable. So, and this goes to the point where these tokens have pretty much completely different use cases. So in my opinion, these are the primary appeals of Paxos-BUSD across the crypto industry. So it's not a product of Binance. One, two, the token is on Ethereum, which is considered a safer or more decentralized blockchain than BNB. It's generally considered more trustworthy than USDT due to the kind of shady cash reserves that USDT has, and also less political slash interest has less political interest slash association than Circle's USDC. And if you guys don't know, USDC might be considered or is being considered for a potential central bank digital currency. So some people aren't really liking the close association with the government, essentially. So that's why some people use, BUSD or Paxos-USD as well. And then considering that Ethereum already has USDC plus USDT in first and second place spots, respectively, and this is mainly attributed to DeFi matters, this suggests that ETH-based BUSD, which is Paxos-BUSD, is seen more as a safe haven than as a trading and trading or utility based stablecoin, essentially. And yeah, that's true. And when you look at the Ethereum market cap breakdown by stablecoin on DeFi Llama, I believe it was I believe 44% was USDT, and then when you do the math, I think it was only like 10 or 11% was on BUSD after Circle. So only with 10% market penetration on Ethereum, you can argue that yet again it's not the main thing for trading or utilization. You can argue that it's more so for just um, um, store value use cases, essentially. And last point for the appeals of Paxos-BUSD, because Paxos Trust allows KYC users to cash out of BUSD into fiat USD, this makes the Paxos issued token a fiat redeemable stablecoin. So this is going to be very different from the Binance we're going to see in a little second. So the primary appeal of Binance BUSD is that it's a Binance ecosystem. It's Binance ecosystem friendly. So these are the token standards for Binance. Where for Paxos BUSD, it would be ERC 20. That's the standard for them. So it's more financially and economically sensible than ETH-based BUSD, which is due to the transaction fees, obviously on Ethereum. Binance and other host blockchains are typically faster than Ethereum. This is a minor point, but it could be possible. Binance is faster, and I haven't been on the other blockchains like that, but I'm assuming they're faster than regular Ethereum. And then also, because a user must/can only sell their Binance BUSD on a compatible DEX or centralized exchange for another crypto asset, one could argue that Binance BUSD is a crypto cash settled stablecoin. So the point being of these last two highlights or sections, whatever, is that because they're literally two completely separate tokens, and not just with the smart contracts or whatever, but literally just in terms of use case, the question is like, why does the DFS in care in terms of, they can make the argument that, oh, they're trying to protect users and all that type of stuff that they always try to say and try to protect investors, but no one is looking within the crypto community. I don't believe anybody actually believes that, that's using the Binance BUSD, you're going to be able to get fiat USD back. No one assumes that. Why would you assume Binance has passed regulations for handling, USD fiat? That's crazy. So I just don't understand what their case for caring so much, whether it's one to one. I just don't understand that at all. And I wanted to look at these two parts for Paxos-based BUSD. So yeah, the primary appeal of a Paxos-based BUSD is that it's not a product of Binance, literally. So it's like for the concern to be about Paxos's oversight of Binance and how they use it, I don't understand why that makes sense. And this is mainly the course because obviously, Paxos-based BUSD has existed since 2019. I believe that was the issuance year. And if that's the case, this has always existed. So this point might have not been as prominent, but this point became the number one point right after FTX. Because obviously with the FTX situation, everyone was then looking at Binance saying, oh, they're going to be next. And that's when Binance had to prove all of his proof of reserves, all that type of stuff. And so the main reason why people prefer Ethereum-based Paxos or BUSD is because it's not a product of Binance. And then also secondarily, people who are very crypto savvy, or not crypto savvy, but have a high crypto ethos, which is as decentralized as possible. They don't like the BNB blockchain in general because it's has lesser nodes, is more centralized than Ethereum. So these are the main differences. So yeah, these are like completely separate tokens, essentially, completely separate tokens. And I just don't think that. I don't think anyone who made that complaint by the DFS, I don't know what their crypto level knowledge is, but it would be very difficult for them to argue against this, in my opinion. And then point 3 of 3. Even at the mentioned 3 instances of the collateralization gap, compared to the typical 10% reserve requirement that's in place with traditional finance, Binance BUSD was multiple times more collateralized. And so this is a unique perspective that I think I have here. But an interesting perspective to have is that compared to the reserve requirements that we're accustomed to with the traditional finance and what we expect from stablecoins, and this is supposed to be a comma, there's general faith that Wells Fargo or any big bank, TD, Barclays, whatever, will have your deposits ready for withdrawal or redeemable in this case at a moment's notice. Yeah, we all know that because of their low reserve requirement, which is typically quoted at 10%. Um, oh boy, I definitely messed up this one right here. But yeah, basically, I was just saying here is that you know are we putting too much pressure on stablecoins and on crypto so far? And the question is, obviously yes, we should have standards, and yes, for sure, we don't want another FTX situation to happen, but especially with the consideration that they're not even real laws or real regulations on exactly this is what we want for a stablecoin, this is what we want, from in terms of the governmental powers. Why are we then pressuring stablecoins to such an extreme um how do you say, or very specifically Binance BUSD stablecoin to such an extreme measure? And the reason is because, uh, so if we expect redeemable institutions and products to be functional at an indefinite 10% reserve ratio, which means that 100% of the time, they 100% of the time, they do not have the money for everyone. Basically, that's the case. So we're okay with 100% of the time they don't have money for all of us, but only for some of us. So we're assuming that the economy is going to be good. If that's okay, then why is it that Binance BUSD isn't temporarily at 100% collateralization, which is where stablecoins are at? So when you really take that comparison, it's like, it's not as big of a deal in real life if you think about it. It's not ideal. Yet again, it's still with the dirty dishes or with the hair in the food, but it's not with the cockroaches and the rats, running in the back. And so, even though the New York DFS has stated that they are requiring Paxos-BUSD to be one-to-one backed and want Binance BUSD to follow the same, the reality is that only 9% of Paxos-BUSD is in short-term U.S. Treasuries, which mature in a 60-day period. The remaining 91% of Paxos-BUSD's collateral comes in longer-term U.S. Treasuries that mature from all the way from as early as August 31st of this year all the way until February 15th of 2046. And yes, that is the case. And I have that right here. So you can check. This is from Paxos.com. And this is the BUSD daily reporting as of February 14, 2023. And so you see that the stable coins, and this is essentially what they use when people want to withdraw from Paxos based BUSD to fiat based USD. So this is their collateral, which is all the treasury debts, short term and long term. So you'll see, which is very interesting, that the total cash deposits, which is considered essentially just the short term debt, is only 1.4 billion, while the total assets is 15.7. So that kind of then implies that even though Paxos based BUSD is 100% collateralized, is not 100% liquid, which it's like, well, what are you doing? I mean, and especially if it's redeemable, if it's not 100% liquid, then why do you care if it's 1-1 back? That's just that's kind of smoke and mirrors for people who aren't paying attention essentially. And so the key question here is, does the DFS care more about stablecoin fiat liquidity or collateralization? Those are two separate things. And so the hypothetical scenario here is that despite the DFS being super regulated and all the type of stuff, if there was a run to cash out of Paxos BUSD by, let's say, 30%, 50%, 60% of holders, let's just say, for whatever reason, Paxos 2 would have to halt withdrawals in the same way as Binance, in the same way as, well, not the same way as FTX, but you understand. So it's like their superiority or their concern about Binance is the same exact problem that they would have with Paxos. So I'm not sure what that is. And so one could even argue that Binance BUSD has a higher percentage of liquidity because all DEX funds are objectively one-to-one backed, and that you don't need a KYC like Paxos does for fiat conversions of Paxos-based BUSD. So essentially, the only problem with the under-collateralization of Binance, which we mentioned earlier, was on the side of the exchange. Whereas if you're on PancakeSwap and you want to exchange Binance BUSD for Circle, for Watch to Earn, for whatever, there's always going to be a one-to-one backed because you factually need to have that in the decentralized exchange. There's no fractional reserves in the DEX. So you can really make the argument that even though the New York DFS, they're concerned that Paxos or that Binance BUSD is under collateralized, which it was a few different times, you could definitely argue that Binance BUSD has far higher liquidity than Paxos. So that's kind of that's an interesting insight there. And so the best guesstimation for argument and concern to BUSD's under collateralization. So I use today's market cap of BUSD, which is 11.7 billion. But remember that the occasions of the $1 billion was between 2020 and 2021. So this is my best guesstimation, and I really wasn't trying to figure out what the exact market cap of BUSD was for those years. I wasn't sure how to find that, but the point still stands here. So those $1 billion dollar peak caps peak gaps of collateral only represent less than 10% under collateralization. So 1 billion divided by 11.7, I think that was like 9 something. So in other words, the DFS is concerned that a company not publicly known to be underneath its authority, Binance, has multiple tokens that are objectively at different smart contracts and different use cases that serve a different use case than Paxos-BUSD, had a few moments, only 3 that were mentioned in that article, where total collateralization was temporarily under or temporarily around 85 to 90% instead of 100%. That's essentially what this is saying, that the DFS is concerned that this is the case, that it was temporarily under collateralized. So it's like, okay, that's kind of what it is, and I just think that this is in the shadow of the FTX situation where everyone's just scared. No one wants to get no one wants to get fined, and then we just see most recently with the SEC and BUSD, everyone's just scared. No one has the guts, really, essentially, besides a few companies right now. And even Paxos issued or said that they would fight the SEC for the stablecoin security thing. So we are seeing some corporate stand back against the regulators, or the feds or whatever you want to call them. But this is, unless I misinterpreted this, this is silly. Is essentially what I'm trying to say. I don't think this matters in the slightest. So the DFS conclusion. So this part 1 conclusion of this video. It's my assumption that because Paxos promised redeemability of registered users for Paxos-BUSD until at least February 2024, and they own dedicated treasuries that span until 2046, it's most likely that Paxos will continue in the stablecoin until the foreseeable future, but might, 1, change the name from the licensed Binance name to something else, or will encourage Paxos BUSD plus Paxos dollar users to merge. If you guys don't know, Paxos dollar is a stable coin that Paxos also released. And so what's also interesting is that in the first article, it mentioned that this is the only allegation or the only issue against Paxos. So it kind of implies that Paxos said that this isn't for the Paxos stablecoin. This is only for the Binance stablecoin. But I checked the white paper for the Paxos USDP, and it's literally the exact same thing. It's essentially what BUSD is. BUSD doesn't have a white paper from what I tried to find, but from its website and from everything I read, and then what's also in the Paxos dollar white paper, they're essentially the same token. So with that being the case, I think that it's more than likely that Paxos-BUSD, which is I think at maybe number 9 or number 10 in terms of market cap, and then Paxos dollar, which is at number 70, number 80, give or take in market cap, somehow those will merge. So maybe they might create a new token. Who knows? So my second point out of 3 here for the conclusion is because Binance BUSD already has millions and billions of dollars locked into smart contracts that are potentially locked for years, unless Paxos BUSD fiat collateral disappears or Binance's Paxos BUSD wrap token deposits gets corrupted or disappears, which both are unbeneficial to their respective companies, or not beneficial. I wasn't sure, not beneficial or unbeneficial. Binance BUSD will not lose its peg or value. So, oh, I guess that looks weird on the camera. I'm fixing my my leg sleeve, so that's what I'm doing here. But yeah, so essentially, but in the same way with the Watch to Earn project, I was looking for us to see, how this affected our project, but it's like I just realized there are literally hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people who have their money locked into BUSD, and not just locked as in like in it, as in literally into a smart contract. So it's like um, unless the Paxos fiat collateral, which is the PDF I showed you on the other side, which is all the treasuries, unless those go away, or if Binance for whatever reason gives up their reserves or their collateral, which is the Paxos based BUSD, the BUSD that I have, no matter what the DFS says, is not going to decrease in value. It's not going to lose its peg. Um, and yeah, and I just don't think one for sure. I'm 100%. I'm way more certain that Paxos won't go back than Binance, just due to being under regulatory scrutiny, all this stuff. But even for Binance, Binance has no incentive to take away the Paxos-based BUSD, because that will literally leave thousands and tens of thousands of people with worthless tokens. And it's like the moment that Binance does that, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. You wouldn't voluntarily do an FTX, would you? So because of that, I think that Binance BUSD is going to be a-okay. I don't think it's going to depeg. I don't think it's going to zero. I don't think any of these things that you commonly see, within the crypto space at least. So the last part here, I believe, yeah, okay. So the last part here is that in worst case scenario, that the DFS disbands or bans Paxos-based BUSD or Binance-based BUSD, they can't stop anybody really from using it. And that's the ultimate reality with all these regulatory bodies. Is that just like the Monero censorship within crypto, I think BUSD will most likely just be a decentralized exchange token, which ultimately just seems to be the general move of the industry anyways, due to all the centralized exchange issues that we've been having. So it's like, yeah, and excuse me, I have allergies. That's why I'm wiping my nose a lot. But yeah, so it's like it's not the same with fiat. And the beauty of the blockchain is that people in power have authority, but not necessarily ability. Yeah, they have authority, but not ability to do much of what they're saying. So it's like in the same way how, and maybe some of you guys might not have been around, but a few years ago, Monero was having this problem where they're saying, oh, Monero is used for money laundering, money and Monero, blah blah blah. And so a lot of the exchanges took Monero off, and they were all scared, whatever. But the reality is that Monero still exists. It still exists on some major blockchains. I think KuCoin has it. I think a few of those, kind of obscure ones, you have them, and there's not anything anybody can do about it. So even if a country completely bans it, it's like you can't stop me from sending it because it's blockchain. Whereas if this was fiat, very quickly they're going to say all the banks, oh yeah, block it, block it. So that's why blockchain is super super great. So in worst case scenario, like I said, if BUSD does get disbanded, or and we're gonna talk about SEC later, if that's considered a stable coin, it's only going to be a stable coin in the United States. All the other countries still have to do it. I think ultimately we're going to be fine. Is essentially what this thing. The point of this breakdown was, is that we're going to be fine. The crypto industry loves to do FUD, and definitely FUD against Binance. Not gonna lie, but this is Watch to Earn, and watch this. So I'm doing all the work and doing all the primary research, all type of stuff to make sure that we actually understand what's going on, and not just going on, the general hype within the crypto industry. So thank you guys for watching this video. Like I said, part 2 of this against the SEC is going to be out soon, so look out for that. Subscribe for that. Like, please. It really helps me out. Just comment if you found it helpful, anything like that. And if you want to find the most up-to-date news again regarding the Watch to Earn project, just go to the description box and go to the Discord that's put there. That's the easiest way to get in contact with me, and then with the rest of the community. I guess it's about like 18 of us in the Discord, so we're going slowly but surely. So yeah, until next time, guys. Catch you later. Peace.